the social ties unraveled, intrigues, alliances, and transformations. Grandmommy spoke, "They are unaware of my vehicle, but they stopped your mother-in-law once and even your second aunt-in-law." As Serenity's expression darkened, Grandmommy hastened to console her. "We all understand their motives. Though they demand a bright price, their true aim is to alienate you within our family, hoping to make your time here unpleasant. We can perceive through their petty schemes. Don't worry, Seren. We haven't allowed them to gain any advantages." When they intercepted Tanya's car, she promptly called the police. She reported it as an obstruction on the road with an attempted robbery. "Your grandfather's audacity is truly astounding. He feigned injury on the ground, not anticipating surveillance cameras monitoring the area. The police reviewed the footage and uncovered his deceit. They reprimanded and lectured him before instructing his children and grandchildren to remove him. Most infuriatingly, they brought reporters disguised as accomplices to clandestinely capture videos, but their ruse was also exposed. Although the recorded videos were deleted, word of this incident would inevitably spread. You needn't be concerned. The entire Wiltspoon community comprehends their character and their treatment of you and your sister. I share this with you because I don't believe they'll desist even after police intervention. They may concoct schemes against both you and your sister, but primarily directed at you. This situation arose from Serenity now being the eldest Mrs. of the York family. Her relatives were determined to sever the relationship between Serenity and Zachary, striving to make her life difficult within her husband's household. Punished by Zachary, they lost their employment and enterprises, relying solely on their savings for survival. Unable to challenge Zachary, they channeled their frustrations towards Serenity. Despite her status as a York family member, it did not erase her kinship ties. No matter how remarkable Zachary was, he couldn't eradicate an extensive family network. If Zachary couldn't eliminate them, they remained fearless and exploited any chance to bother Serenity. Threats and admonitions were ineffective against such individuals. Even if the police were summoned, their actions weren't strictly illegal, resulting in mere warnings at most. The saying that it's preferable to anger a gentleman rather than a villain held true. Her hometown acquaintances were undoubtedly villains, unscrupulous and cunning. Serenity's voice turned cold. "I'm not afraid, Nana. If they dare to confront me, I'll shoo them away. We've dismissed them numerous times, hence, they targeted you for trouble, knowing they'd gain nothing from me. If they assumed the York family would offer them money to alleviate the annoyance, they were sorely mistaken. Nana, Zachary is still at home. I'll accompany you downstairs, and then you can head upstairs on your own. I'm headed to the store." "No need for that. You can proceed to work. I'm familiar with the way. I'll ascend on my own." Grandma may decline Serenity's escort to the entrance. Serenity assisted the elderly woman with her suitcase and notified Zachary of her arrival before departing upon spotting Jim and the others. Recalling her initial encounter with Jim and the other bodyguards, she believed they resided nearby. As she left, Serenity discerned someone covertly tailing her. Maintaining composure, she eschewed main roads for narrow alleyways, employing a series of turns until she shook off her pursuer. Likely the paparazzi, their interest stemmed from her exposure as the eldest Mrs. of the York family. Yet, thanks to Zachary's influence, the media refrained from openly approaching her. Despite this, evading paparazzi surveillance was challenging, especially capturing snapshots of her and Zachary's private lives. People in Wiltspoon were intrigued by the genesis of their relationship and their daily interactions. Upon returning to Wiltspoon School, Jasmine had opened the shop, accompanied by Mrs. Lane. Given Serenity and Zachary's separate living arrangements, Mrs. Lane resumed the routine of returning to Brenfield daily to tend to the balcony flowers. She no longer resided there, having returned to the original manor where she had lived. Sam, the housekeeper back from his leave, provided Mrs. Lane with a car for her convenience. Miss Hunt greeted Mrs. Lane as she spotted Serenity's arrival. The respectful greeting was met with a reply, "You can continue calling me Miss Hunt, Mrs. Lane. Mrs. sounds odd to me." Serenity remained down to earth with Mrs. Lane. However, the housekeeper expressed concern, "Mr. Zachary might reduce my bonus if he learns of this change. You'll likely get used to it over time." Serenity sighed, somewhat exasperated by Zachary's tendency to use threats. With that, she entered the store where Jasmine noticed her arrival, conducting a quick appraisal from head to toe. "What's this? Am I unrecognizable?" Serenity quipped. Jasmine's laughter rang out. "You're looking great today. You seem to be in high spirits, and your mood is quite cheerful. Did something happen?" "Indeed, I happened to come across a handsome hunk. He's even better looking than Zachary." Jasmine playfully retorted, "Impossible. There's no man in Wilkespoon who outshines your husband. Not even Josh is a match for him." Jasmine appreciated Josh's inquisitive nature, which mirrored her own. When together, they could dissect anyone's life. "Have you reconciled with Mr. York? It's been a while, and your anger seems to have subsided. Since you're no longer angry, why not just patch things up with him?" "Josh looks like he's about to collapse from his headaches. He mentioned Mr. York's knack for pushing everyone in the company to the brink of tears." Serenity responded casually, "He's tormenting himself as much as he is to others. A clear instance was his gastritis. Serenity had even accompanied him to the hospital the previous night." She hadn't divulged this to her best friend. "By the way, when is Liberty's store opening for business? I notified my family in our group chat to visit her store on its opening day to show support." Serenity felt profoundly grateful. Her best friend was truly remarkable. Impressively, she's opening next Monday. She's targeting workers in the vicinity, so Monday suits them. After weekend fun, people often prefer eating out rather than cooking breakfast at the week's beginning. Taking note of Liberty's breakfast store's opening date, Jasmine expressed her intention, "I'll definitely lend a hand on that day." "Absolutely. Could you use my assistance as well?" Jasmine inquired. Serenity's lips curved into a smile. "Mrs. Lane and I should be sufficient." Considering her sister's rented store wasn't particularly spacious, too many helpers might create congestion, especially with breakfast customers present. Engaged in conversation, their attention shifted as a trio entered. Among them was Noah, Serenity's youngest cousin. He had attempted to intercept Serenity's car in the dead of night. He was hoping to teach her a lesson, but she had him taken to the police station. Released after a 15-day detention, Noah's hatred for Serenity only intensified. He abandoned his education, appeased by indulgent parents who believed his grades wouldn't secure university acceptance, so they allowed him freedom. Since leaving school, Noah's existence had been confined to gaming. His participation during his grandfather's last store visit to stir up trouble had gone unnoticed by Serenity due to the crowd. "Let me go. I said let me go." Noah's protests fell on deaf ears as two burly men escorted him inside. While Serenity was unfamiliar with these bodyguards, she deduced they were discreetly appointed by Zachary for observation, or rather, discreet protection. As they hauled Noah in and nudged him, he stumbled and quickly sought refuge behind Serenity. "Serenity, help me!" he implored. Serenity detached him from her and inquired sternly, "What have you done?" "Mrs., he was tailing you and repeatedly capturing your images. Upon losing your trail, he arrived here and tried to slash your car's tires when he found the area vacant. We got him just in time." Serenity delivered a stinging slap to Noah's arm, eliciting a jump. He wished to utter a retort, but the memory of her formidable might from their last encounter stifled his words. Fuming inwardly, he dared not unleash his anger on Serenity, opting to rub his stinging arm while warily watching her. Mulling over her next course of action, Serenity first examined the knife. Turning to Noah, she interrogated coldly, "I thought it was the paparazzi, but it's you. Why were you tailing me? And did you use a phone or a camera for the photos?" The bodyguards answered her second question. He used his phone for the pictures. Handing Serenity both the phone and the small knife, the bodyguard continued, "Here's his phone, and this is the knife he tried to slash your tires with." Serenity's gaze remained icy on Noah, who defensively stammered, "I just took a few photos, and I didn't touch your tires. Why are you glaring at me like that? It's as if you're going to devour me." Yet, instead of immediately inquiring about his actions, Serenity's focus turned to the knife. Swiftly, she extracted the blade. Noah must have followed her in a car. She speculated whether it was his own or borrowed from a cousin. Though the new year had arrived, Noah hadn't yet celebrated his 18th birthday, leaving him a minor. In other words, he was driving without a license. A daring act indeed, supported by his family's indulgence and his lack of fear. Driving without a license meant little to him. Noah's reaction was swift as he chased Serenity, pleading, "Serenity, Saren, don't damage my tires. I borrowed John's car. He swore never to let me near it again if I harm it." John's car was an extravagant model, making it a highly coveted possession. Recognizing Noah's purpose in following Serenity, he'd capitalized on the opportunity to request John's luxury vehicle. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared participate in a venture that would inevitably result in a thrashing from Serenity. None of them had ever encountered Serenity's prowess in combat. That leaves them blissfully ignorant of her capabilities. Noah, too, realized he had been recruited for this task due to his status as a minor, sheltered from full legal consequences. Initially uncertain about the car Noah had utilized, he voluntarily revealed John's vehicle, making it possible for Serenity to locate it. After all, among the cousins, John's car was the most impressive. Walking towards the car, Serenity raised the knife and proceeded to slash all 4 tires. The rubber was punctured and soon deflated, rendering all tires flat. "Oh no, Noah lamented. Gazing at the deflated tires, a sense of panic overcame him. "I don't have money to replace his tires." Shouting at her, he added with urgency, "You'll have to cover the expenses." With the knife still in her grasp, Serenity advanced, engrossed in its motion. Noah's outbursts gradually waned, replaced by quiet apprehension. Standing in front of him, Serenity playfully tapped his face with the knife. The tension was palpable as fear painted his eyes. Terrified that she might disfigure him by slashing his face, Noah's heart raced. Given he remained unwed, such an outcome would be particularly disastrous. Whose idea was this? Serenity's voice cut through the tension. "What idea?" Noah stammered. "Following me, photographing me, and damaging my tires. Whose idea was it, and what's their motive?" Her suspicion extended beyond a mere attempt to sell photos to the media for profit. Serenity believed it was more complex than that. "I did it because I wanted to get back at you. There's no other reason," Noah responded, careful not to divulge his cousin's schemes. Unbeknownst to Serenity, her cousins held her and her husband responsible for their current plight. Their attempts at extracting money from the Yorks had been futile. Old Mr. Hunt even berated his long-deceased son Scott for raising 2 ungrateful girls. Despite Serenity's affluence, she had refused to assist her relatives, causing her cousins to lose their jobs. The resentment extended to her female cousins, whom Mr. Hunt felt she should have helped marry into wealthy families after her own marriage into the York family. Their frustration had culminated in John's sinister plan. Harriet, John's younger sister, bore a striking resemblance to Serenity in age and features. John proposed altering Harriet's appearance to match Serenity's and orchestrating Serenity's kidnapping, banishing her to a remote forest to prevent her return. Harriet would then supplant Serenity as the eldest Mrs. of the York family. The entire family rallied behind this scheme, anticipating Harriet's allegiance to her maiden family. As Serenity looked at Noah, he pondered. John failed to account for one crucial factor: Serenity possesses kickboxing skills, while Harriet has been pampered from birth. She couldn't even lift a bucket of water, let alone fight. Doubts gnawed at Noah. Will John's plan actually succeed? Harriet had already undergone cosmetic surgery, but Noah remained unaware of her post-surgery appearance. Consequently, he remained uncertain if Harriet truly bore Serenity's visage. Noah Hunt, you're familiar with me, right? If you remain silent, I might just etch a few lines on your face. With your pimple-covered complexion, adding some blade scars would make you even more unsightly. Your chances of finding a wife and leading a single life forever will be quite promising. Serenity declared with a chilling smile. Noah paled visibly, stuttering, I can't reveal. Serenity's instinct told her that her relatives were orchestrating a significant plot against her. Turning to the two bodyguards, she instructed, bring him inside. I'll take care of my young cousin. Wait, I'll accompany you. Don't let them get their hands on me. They're way too rough, Noah pleaded, jumping to his feet and trailing Serenity into the store. Having fallen into Serenity's grasp previously, Noah knew better than to cross her. She was capable of reducing him to a pulp if she didn't obtain the information she sought. Inside the store, he set up a stool for her and poured her a glass of water. Speak. Why were they having you follow me? If you choose not to divulge it, be aware that you now recognize my identity. I possess the means to unveil your plan at my discretion. However, if you cooperate, I'll even provide you money for a cab ride home. Noah was left momentarily speechless. Did she intend to pay for his cab fare? Are you going to talk or not? Serenity's fists clenched, conveying her clear intention. It was plain to understand what she meant. Don't even think about it. I'll talk. They instructed me to follow you discreetly and capture pictures of you, which they'd then show to Harriet for imitation. Serenity's eyes glinted, prompting exchanged glances between Jasmine and Mrs. Lane. The individuals present were no fools. Noah's statement illuminated the Hunt family's intentions. And? Serenity probed nonchalantly. Noah refused to divulge further, insisting that what he had shared was all he knew. As the youngest, they don't include me in their full discussions. They only brief me when they need me for a small part. I truly don't possess additional information. Serenity didn't press him for more details. Instead, she handed back his phone. Assuming she intended to return it, Noah accepted it gratefully. Just as he was about to express his thanks, she issued another command, erase all the photos you took. Noah was left speechless. Ensure every last one is deleted. If you don't, I'll shatter your phone, remove your SIM card, and toss it into the river downstream. In a rush, Noah assured, I'll delete them all. Every single one. He found himself in a stroke of ill luck. Since on reconnaissance for the first time, he was exposed immediately. He cursed Serenity inwardly, feeling that he fumbled each time he targeted her. Under Serenity's watchful gaze, Noah unlocked the phone and handed it back to her, his silence expressing compliance. She proceeded to delete all the captured images. She even inspected his WhatsApp chat with John and others, which discussed retaliatory strategies against her. Despite his secret photography, Noah hadn't managed to share the photos. Serenity returned the phone, her warning poignant: "Should this occur again, I'll hand you over to Mr. York for handling." His methods surpass mine in ruthlessness. He won't kill you, but he can certainly make your life an utter torment. Noah's countenance drained of color. If Serenity was fearsome, Mr. York was on a whole other level. "I promise, I won't engage in such activities again. Regardless of the benefits offered, I'll abstain," Noah vowed. Having twice fallen into Serenity's clutches with no rewards to show for it, he harbored resentment toward her, yet he remained ensnared by her grasp. His streak of misfortune persisted. He mused that perhaps he'd fare better if assigned to tail and photograph Liberty instead. In the eyes of old Mr. Hunt and the others, Liberty paled in comparison to Serenity in terms of importance. One was a divorced woman living alone with a child, while the other stood as the esteemed eldest missus of the wealthiest family in the city, the York family. Even a toddler could distinguish whose worth outweighed the other. "Leave?" Serenity's command rang out. Noah stumbled over his words, "My fair." Serenity's glare sufficed to send Noah scurrying away. She had deceived him. He cursed her silently. How could he be related to someone like Serenity? Noah berated Serenity relentlessly all the way back to John's rented residence. However, John's luxury car remained stranded, its 4 tires slashed. Noah couldn't return it, leaving John to brainstorm a solution. Luckily, the car keys had at least been reclaimed. Upon learning that his young cousin not only bungled the mission but also abandoned his car at Serenity's store, John erupted in anger. Kicking Noah and shouting, he berated, "Even if you were scared and fled, you could have taken the car with you. How did you come back with just the keys and not the car?" "I couldn't drive it back, John." Noah absorbed the kicks without retaliation, meekly explaining, "Serenity slashed your tires. I tried to stop her, but she was too swift. I couldn't prevent it." John winced in dismay. "She punctured my tires? All 4 of them?" His fury surged. Replacing a single tire already costs a fortune, and she slashed all 4. "Noah, you didn't disclose our plan to her, did you?" John asked anxiously, recalling their scheme. "I didn't," Noah assured him. Indeed, he hadn't explicitly revealed the comprehensive plan to her. Exhaling a sigh of relief, John cautioned, "Only we should be privy to that plan. Don't divulge it to anyone. If they catch wind of it, they'll be vigilant, and our scheme will crumble." Noah nodded fervently. "I understand, John. Rest assured, I didn't tell her anything." In truth, he hadn't shared the intricate details with Serenity. "What about my car?" John's heart ached for his vehicle. Substituting all 4 tires would demand a considerable sum. In the past, he'd hardly have blinked at such an expense. However, having lost his job, he'd grown more cautious with his finances. The job loss hadn't inflicted substantial hardship, given his savings, yet his expenditures were now scrutinized. Family expenses also sprang from his pocket, including the support of his parents. Additionally, his wife was pregnant. To shield her from stress during pregnancy, he'd sent her to her parental home. That's why Serenity had never crossed paths with her. "Serenity Hunt," John spat with venom, his voice dripping with malice. "Just wait. A day will come when we'll make you weep." Once their plot bore fruit, Serenity would be left with nothing. Abandoned in the woods, she'd eventually succumb to starvation. Then, his sister would seamlessly step into Serenity's shoes as the eldest missus of the York family, a delightful prospect in his eyes. Following Noah's hasty retreat, Jasmine turned to her friend and remarked, "Saren, those guys might actually be plotting to replace you." "It's not a might, Jasmine, they're already scheming," Serenity replied wearily, taking a seat behind the cash register. The exhaustion was apparent on her face. The unfortunate Hunt bloodline linked her and her sister to such manipulative relatives. "To think we share blood ties with them," Serenity mused bitterly. "Is the Harriet Noah mentioned older or younger than you?" Jasmine inquired. "We're the same age. I'm just a week older," Serenity answered, contemplating the cousin she hadn't seen in over a decade. Her recollection of Harriet was rather dim. Did they share any resemblance? Back when her parents were alive, she and Harriet attended the same school and were even in the same class. Vaguely, she remembered whispers from classmates about their similarities. Then, it could only be a mild resemblance. Could Harriet truly believe she could supplant Serenity just by impersonating her? Did they really believe Zachary could be deceived? Unless Harriet underwent plastic surgery to change her appearance. "Harriet Hunt," Serenity murmured. "I'll head to York Corporation at noon. This situation should be dealt with by Zachary. Harriet might be getting cosmetic surgery right now." While she doubted Zachary would be fooled, Serenity didn't want Harriet to acquire her appearance. Her powerlessness to prevent Harriet from undergoing surgery left her only one option: entrust Zachary with handling the matter. Given that both husband and wife were the Hunt family targets, they needed to collaborate to counteract the threat. "Their audacity is shocking. How can they hatch such a malicious scheme?" Jasmine remarked, clearly disgusted by their relatives' intentions. "They've always been capable of this. Ever since my grandfather stirred trouble, I knew they wouldn't stop there. Giving money would never be enough. They'd crave more," Serenity stated. Her resolve to withhold any financial support from them was unwavering. This new plan was simply their attempt to secure benefits through an alternative route. "Mr. Zachary won't fall for it," Mrs. Lane asserted confidently. An old adage echoed in her mind, "You may recognize a face, but understanding a person's heart is a different matter." Even if Harriet replicated Serenity's appearance, her true nature would be unmasked. Serenity's idiosyncrasies and demeanor couldn't be replicated overnight. Furthermore, Serenity possessed kickboxing skills that Zachary could use to ascertain Harriet's authenticity. Regardless of whether he falls for it or not, this plan must be thwarted. "I won't tolerate seeing my own cousin with my exact face," Serenity declared, repulsed by the notion. At present, Zachary remained unaware of the Hunt family's vile intentions. Oblivious, he lay sound asleep on Serenity's bed the entire night. Morning saw him consuming the meal she personally prepared to nourish his body. Despite undergoing another injection, his heart remained content. Even the presence of his grandmother didn't incite his anger, a testament to his softened mood. Grandma May trailed Zachary to the office. She was careful not to disrupt his work, instead exploring the premises upon her arrival. Her familiar face was recognized by colleagues. Otherwise, they might have mistaken her for a janitor. Her steps led her to Callum's office. Without waiting for a knock, she pushed open the door and entered. Callum glanced up from his desk, setting his pen aside as he rose to greet the elderly woman. "Nana, what brings you here today?" he inquired warmly. "There's a breeze blowing from every corner," Grandma May retorted, gently pushing away Callum's helping hand. "I'm not feeble yet. I'll stick around until I see all of you married and with children." "In that case, I won't marry or have kids. I'll keep you alive until you're 200, Nana," Callum teased, only to receive a light smack from his grandmother. "You little rascal. I tagged along with your big brother to the office today to discuss your marriage plans," Grandma May announced. Callum was rendered speechless. Was it too late to escape this predicament now? Apparently not. He swiftly guided his Nana to the couch and assisted her in sitting down. Kneeling in front of her, he embarked on massaging her legs, a mix of curiosity and nervousness in his voice as he asked, "Who's the lucky candidate, Nana? Do I know her?" He was fully aware that his grandmother had set her sights on him for an arranged marriage. It was now his turn in the queue. "Let me make this clear, Nana. I'm not interested in sudden marriages. Don't lay on the ground pretending to be in distress, only to make someone rescue you and then push me to marry that person to repay the favor," Callum implored with a touch of exasperation. Grandmame grinned and assured him, "I used that trick on Zachary, so I won't resort to it for you. Don't worry." "Alright then, spill the beans. Who is she, ye?" "Curious, are we?" "Absolutely. You were the one who helped me choose a partner. I'm eager to know who managed to win my Nana's approval," Callum said, seizing the opportunity to seek clarification on why his grandmother had selected Serenity as their eldest sister-in-law. That choice still puzzled him. In response, Grandmame disclosed, "I was indeed in a predicament at that time and Serenity came to my rescue. Don't twist it into an insurance fraud scheme. I genuinely admire Serenity. However, the primary reason I insisted Zachary marry her was due to a fortune teller. He prophesied that Serenity and Zachary were destined to be a couple." Callum was taken aback, prompting him to inquire further, "Nana, where did you find this fortune teller? Is their skill truly that remarkable?" "All fortune tellers can predict a couple's compatibility," Grandmame replied, withholding the seer's identity. "Can you pour me a glass of water?" she requested. "Of course, Nana." Callum promptly poured her a cup of warm water. Sipping twice, Grandmame then retrieved 2 photos from her pocket, handing them to Callum. "Choose one of these 2 as your target. You have 1 year to accomplish this goal." "And if things don't work out within a year?" Callum inquired. "Then you can take your leave. Return when you've achieved the goal." Callum sighed. "Nana, you're quite ruthless. We're your grandsons, after all. Grandsons have to prove their worth." "I could undergo a gender transition and become your granddaughter." "Feel free, but even if you did, you still wouldn't be a granddaughter in my eyes." Callum chuckled. "I'm just kidding, Nana." He certainly didn't harbor desires of becoming a woman. Receiving the 2 photos, he studied them before widening his eyes in disbelief. Pointing at one of the images, he exclaimed, "Nana, are you sure you're looking for a wife for me? Because it seems like you're hunting for a brother instead." One of the photos depicted an attractive man. Grandmame rolled her eyes playfully. "Have you heard of Miss Stoll, the president of Stoll Corporation in Annenberg?" Callum's brow furrowed in confusion. "Casey Stoll. She's a woman who looks like a man. If it weren't for her marriage and impending pregnancy, people might think she's actually a man." Callum gestured to the handsome figure in the photograph. "So, this is a woman. She has a twin brother, and they appear identical. Her family raised her as a boy since childhood, so she presents herself as a man. Outsiders perceive her as the eldest son," Grandmame explained. "How did you discern her true gender?" Callum had heard of Casey Stoll and even seen images of her. At first glance, she did indeed bear the semblance of a man, although it wasn't necessarily a deliberate attempt to convey a different gender identity. Her clothing style had a touch of androgyny, but owing to her influential position, people mistakenly assumed she was a man. The striking man in the photo, however, was distinct from Casey. Raised and dressed as a man, he exuded a stern and cold aura with strong features, prominent eyebrows, and broad eyes, adorned in a suit that accentuated his tall stature. Any observer would immediately associate him with a male identity. Callum turned the photo over and read the woman's profile on the reverse side. Hayden Queen, 28 years old, the eldest son of the chairman of Queen Enterprise in Ginsburg. She assumed the role of Queen Enterprise's president after gaining her father's trust. Known for her reticence and efficiency, her interest encompassed basketball and horse riding. Nana, is this all the information you have? That's the extent of it. It's more than sufficient. All you need are her name, age, and residence. If you want to delve deeper, that's your prerogative. Grandma May reclaimed Hayden's photograph from Callum's grasp. This isn't meant for you, but for Kevin. Hayden is more reserved, expressing herself through actions. She's better suited for Kevin. Kevin is quite the talker too. Can you match up to Kevin? Callum was momentarily at a loss for words. Among the brothers, Kevin was indeed the most eloquent. Are you intrigued by Hayden? Callum shook his head. Not particularly. Since she's earmarked for Kevin, I'll explore the other option for now. Only then did he scrutinize the other photo carefully. In this image, the person was clearly a girl, although her face was obscured by large sunglasses. Despite the shades, her petite features were evident, making her appear even more delicate. He turned the photo over to read her profile. Cameron Newman, 26 years old, niece and stepdaughter to the president of Newman Enterprise in Wildspoon. Following her father's early demise, her mother wed her uncle, who subsequently became the president of Newman Enterprise. As a result, she assumed the dual roles of stepdaughter and niece. Nana, isn't Cameron visually impaired? While the Newmans hailed from Wildspoon, their business mainly flourished outside the city. Wildspoon merely marked the origin of Newman Enterprise. Unwilling to challenge York Corporation and Stone Group in their hometown, the bulk of their operations extended beyond the city limits. In Wildspoon, the Newmans remained relatively low profile, appearing as merely prosperous individuals. However, their assets reached the billions. She's feigning blindness. Callum hesitated before inquiring, is there more to her story? Indeed. You can explore that on your own. Callum smirked and commented, I've heard about her, but I've never encountered her in person. People who are visually impaired tend to be cautious around others. It might prove challenging to establish a close connection. I've already informed you she's pretending. I've shared her photo with you, so you now recognize her appearance. She operates a flower shop in the city's bustling area, assisted by 2 employees. By the way, her shop frequently procures goods from our estate. Zach even purchased a bouquet from her for Serenity. Naturally, Zachary remained oblivious to this detail. Given that your elder brother fell in love with Serenity, there's a certain timeless wisdom to fortune-telling. It's worth lending some credence to, Grandma May concluded, rising from her seat. I won't further distract you from your work. I'll head to Liberty's shop. It's been quite a while since I last saw him. Liberty's Breakfast Diner will be commencing operations soon, correct? Callum responded, I haven't heard Serenity mention it. Serenity and Zach have been engaged in prolonged squabbles. Sometimes it's better not to hear about her affairs. Initially perplexed, it wasn't until after his grandmother departed and he pondered over the conversation that Callum grasped her underlying meaning. Zachary was exceedingly dominant, and if he learned of something before others did, his reaction might involve some form of projectiles. Knowing Zachary's jealousy, the implications became clear. Soon afterward, Serenity arrived at the scene. Anticipating Zachary's needs, she preemptively sent his lunch, wary that he might again overlook eating due to his busy schedule. Upon her car's arrival at York Corporation, the station security personnel were thrilled by her presence. Hastily unlocking the gate, they allowed her entry and promptly informed the front desk. In a professional tone, the security guard relayed, "The CEO's wife has arrived." The CEO's actions rippled throughout the entire company due to his attachment to his wife. With her unexpected appearance, many believed that their trying days would soon abate. Even the security team, who were generally unaffected by the CEO's demeanor, understood the shared sentiment that her arrival was akin to a refreshing breeze driving away the chill of winter. Winter may have transitioned into spring, but the air still retained a brisk bite. Once the receptionist received news of the CEO's wife's arrival, she relayed this to Mr. Chaplin. "Mr. Chaplin, the boss's wife is here. She's just entered the building." A cheerful grin emerged on Mr. Chaplin's face. "You're certain it's her?" Yes. The receptionist had witnessed Serenity carrying 2 insulated lunch boxes as she approached the lobby. Sporting a smile, she elucidated, "I saw her myself. She's carrying 2 lunch boxes. It appears she's brought lunch for the boss. We won't be laboring into the late hours anymore." A sigh of relief escaped Mr. Chaplin's lips. Thank the heavens. With a contented sigh, he terminated the call, brimming with happiness. In Serenity's perception, everyone seemed to wear a smile, exuding an air of heightened enthusiasm directed toward her. She mused, so this is how the CEO's wife is treated. Mrs. York. The 2 receptionists greeted Serenity with utmost respect, accompanied by friendly smiles as she walked in. Returning their smiles, Serenity appreciated their consistent courtesy. One of the receptionists came around the desk and escorted Serenity toward the elevator. Her gaze flickered to the insulated lunch boxes Serenity carried. "Zachary hasn't been feeling well lately, so I brought him some food. It's nearly time for lunch, isn't it?" Serenity arrived early, her thoughtfulness evident in her actions. The receptionist's concern was palpable. "Mr. York isn't well? He should take care of himself." Internally, she pondered, the CEO has been relentlessly working without breaks, often missing meals. Mr. Chaplin usually ensures he has something to eat at the office, but Mr. York's schedule can get so hectic that he still sometimes skips meals. It's not surprising his health would be affected. "We're approaching lunch break," the receptionist added, leading Serenity toward the exclusive elevator. She pressed the button to keep the doors open, extending an invitation for Serenity to enter. Serenity smiled at the receptionist before stepping into the elevator alone and heading to the top floor. Exiting the elevator, Serenity was greeted by a beaming Mr. Chaplin. Surprised by the extent of his smile, which even led to his eyes closing, she wondered about the reason for his evident cheerfulness. "Hello, Mrs. York. I'm Mr. York's secretary, Mr. Chaplin." "Hello, Mr. Chaplin," Serenity greeted politely, her curiosity piqued. "Is Zachary available now, or would my entrance be disruptive?" Mr. Chaplin maintained his smile. "No, please feel free to knock and enter." He chose not to inform Zachary, hoping for a pleasant surprise. "However, the coup is currently in the office," Mr. Chaplin added, noting Callum's presence. "He's discussing something with Mr. York." Callum had visited Zachary earlier to discuss Grandma May's matchmaking attempts, sharing a photo of the potential partner. Callum had learned some basics about her age and profession, but had no other substantial details. Serenity's smile persisted. "All right, thank you, Mr. Chaplin." Her foresight in bringing 2 lunch boxes turned out to be provident, ensuring there was enough for both Callum and herself. Mr. Chaplin led Serenity to Zachary's office door and knocked. After receiving the CEO's permission to enter, he opened the door, allowing Serenity to step in. He stayed back, refraining from following her inside. As the door closed, Mr. Chaplin returned to his desk, tidying up before preparing for his own lunch break. A sense of relief washed over him. He was finally able to relax after the recent bouts of tension. Saren? Zachary struggled to convey his overwhelming joy upon seeing his cherished wife. His heart soared at her presence. Serenity. Callum stood up and greeted Serenity, willingly vacating his seat for her. Zachary's pen slipped from his hand as he stood to greet his wife. Callum moved aside, reflecting, I conversed with him for over 30 minutes earlier, but he didn't even glance my way, let alone respond. It's like he's a different person when Serenity enters. However, Callum shared in the happiness of seeing Serenity. Everyone was aware that Grandma May had advised Zachary to give Serenity space to regain her composure. Zachary, unused to not being in his wife's company, compensated by directing his energy toward everyone else, inadvertently becoming a somewhat demanding presence. Though he might not realize the strain he imposed on those below him, Callum understood the reasons behind it. Saren, why didn't you give me a heads up about your visit? I would have come down to greet you, Zachary expressed, relieving his wife of the insulated lunch boxes she carried. Turning to his desk, he gently placed the boxes down before guiding Serenity to the sofa, holding her hand all the while. His intense gaze seemed to cling to her form. A level of intensity that Callum inwardly scoffed at, thinking, if he could literally remove his eyes and affix them on Serenity, he probably would, without a second thought. Serenity responded, humor twinkling in her eyes as she pinched his rosy cheek, her smile warm. It's not my first time here, you don't have to fetch me. I brought you lunch to make sure you eat on time and help your stomach recover. Zachary's grin broadened. Thank you, my love. Unable to resist, Serenity playfully teased, is the company giving out bonuses today? Everyone seems to be in high spirits. Callum chimed in with laughter, jesting, having you visit is better than a bonus, Serenity. Zachary's gaze shifted to his brother, his silent message being, didn't you see my wife brought me lunch? Stop standing there like a statue, and get lost. Callum, bring the lunch over. I've got plenty, enough for both of you, Serenity instructed. Callum promptly fetched the lunch boxes from the desk, setting them on the coffee table. Seating himself, he was about to open the boxes when he noticed Zachary's intense glare directed at him. Caught off guard, Callum's enthusiasm wavered under that glare. Stifling his irritation, Zachary's tense expression relaxed when Callum finally left. Upon realizing that Callum had lunch plans and wouldn't be eating with them, Serenity didn't press the matter. Once Callum exited, Zachary's smile returned, brightening his face. However, before Serenity could fully settle, the office door swung open again, and Callum reappeared. Zachary's patience wore thin. Why are you back? I forgot the photo. I'm heading to the hotel now, so I'll take it to Kevin while I'm there, Callum explained. Following a chronological order, Grandma May was moving down her list. Callum was her second grandson, only a year younger than Zachary. As he approached 30, and with Kevin being just a year younger, both were prime candidates for marriage. Once, Zachary had been the main target of Grandma May's matchmaking. Now that he was married, her attention naturally shifted to Callum and Kevin. Stepping closer to the desk, Callum retrieved the photos he'd brought to show Zachary. Yet, his brother hadn't given them a glance earlier. Let me see the photos, Zachary requested, his disinterest in the women Grandma May had suggested quite apparent. It was clear that his heart and attention were focused solely on Serenity. Zachary's interest in the photos was undoubtedly sparked by Serenity's presence. The prospect of fresh gossip was too tempting, Naturally, he wanted to include his wife in the loop. Callum was no fool. He recognized that Zachary was using him and Kevin to entertain Serenity. It was evident that he was throwing his brothers under the bus to please his sister-in-law. Callum handed over the photos with a tinge of self-contempt, berating himself for his lack of assertiveness. Zachary was exploiting him to amuse Serenity, and yet Callum was acquiescing without resistance. Should his relationship hit a rough patch in the future, requiring his brothers and sister-in-law's aid, Callum hoped that the young couple would offer unwavering support. But really, what was he thinking? His relationship was bound to be smooth sailing. Either way, he wouldn't plunge into a sudden marriage or cloak it in secrecy. He had no intention of hiding his identity or deceiving his future spouse. All would proceed without hitches. What photos? Serenity's curiosity was piqued, and as expected, Zachary's presentation of the images was quite dramatic. "These are treasures, thanks to Nana. She's been tirelessly searching for potential partners for Callum and Kevin," Zachary elucidated. Kevin, the third scion of the York family and Zachary's third cousin, oversaw the hotel division of York Corporation. Beneath his charming facade lay an eloquent yet dangerously cunning individual. Serenity had met most of the York family's offspring and found them all remarkably attractive. Her interest was piqued, and she reached for the photos. Nana's fretting over their marriage out of sheer boredom. With their qualifications, suitors must be lining up. Ironically, these accomplished men weren't particularly preoccupied with matrimony. At 30, Zachary had married Serenity the previous year, and Callum, just a year his junior, was approaching 30. In contrast, an average man might already be a father by now. Amused, Serenity inquired, gesturing at Hayden's photo, "Is Nana scouting for brothers or wives for Callum and Kevin?" Callum explained, "The photos have details on the back. This one's for Kevin. Nana wants him to find a way to get acquainted with Hayden, pursue her, and marry her within a year. Nana's not picky about his methods, just the results. If he fails, she'll kick him out. She took this photo with her earlier but returned to give it to me for Kevin." It was apparent to Callum that Grandma May entrusted him with the photo because she wasn't confident in convincing Kevin herself. In her hypothetical presence, she would likely retort, "Who said I can't convince Kevin? I'm merely eager to see Sonny again." She'd never admit that her sharp tongue had been inherited by Kevin, who wielded it even more masterfully than her younger self. In verbal battles, Kevin outdid her in every respect. Serenity flipped the photo, reading the back for details. The description indicated that Hayden Queen was the eldest son of the Queen Enterprise president, suggesting that she wasn't biologically male. "She's a woman?" Serenity inquired. "Yes, she's lived as a man for over 20 years. You know, fake it till you make it. She's unlike Annenberg's Casey Stoll," Callum replied. Casey's androgynous attire often misled people into thinking she was a man. In contrast, Hayden deliberately presented herself as male. Whether due to natural appearance or deliberate transformation, she stood at an extraordinary 6 feet tall, an imposing stature for any woman. Recalling that Kevin stood at a towering height of 6 feet 2, Callum comprehended Grandma May's strategic thinking. Measuring in at just 5 feet 7, Callum chuckled at the thought of pairing up with Hayden. She'd easily overshadow him. Among the 9 siblings, Kevin reigned as the tallest. Even if a woman disguises herself as a man, there are usually giveaways. A woman's Adam's apple tends to be less prominent, Serenity mused, her curiosity now thoroughly piqued by Hayden's photo. Why would she pretend to be a man for over 20 years? "Saran, there are ways to conceal Adam's apple," Zachary added, sensing her intrigue. Serenity was taken aback, admitting she hadn't considered that aspect. Serenity then inquired about Casey Stoll, leading Zachary to provide an explanation. She's the head of Stoll Corporation in Annenberg. It's rather a tragic story. She lost her family, except for her younger sister, and had to take over the family business. Despite her hardships, she exudes power and influence, often dressing in unisex attire, which has led people to mistake her for a man. As he continued, Zachary intertwined the story with their network, elucidating, her sister is married now. The husband is the elder sibling of Ben's wife. Ben is the leader of Annenberg's wealthiest family, the Johnsons. He's Remy's older brother. You've met Remy before. He promised to detail the complex Johnson family history later, revealing their close collaboration with FC & Co., as well as their connection with York Corporation. He even proposed taking Serenity to Annenberg to meet Jane, Ben's wife, as this would enhance Serenity's status. After examining Hayden's photo and discovering her role in Grandma May's plan for Kevin, Serenity handed the photo back to Callum with a smile. I trust Nana's judgment. If she deems Miss Queen suitable for Kevin, then I'm confident she is. Zachary echoed, while Nana can be like a mischievous child, she possesses keen insight into people. As her grandkids, we're the last people she'd aim to deceive. Callum rolled his eyes. It seemed that the couple was reconciled once more, leading Zachary to shower praise on Grandma May again. When Serenity examined Cameron's picture, then turned her gaze to Callum with a knowing smile, he knew what she was thinking. Seems like Nana has a soft spot for you. She chose someone local from Wiltspoon for you, making it easier for you to pursue her. Kevin's potential partner resides all the way in Ginsburg. Ginsburg and Wiltspoon were located in separate provinces, and despite modern transportation, the journey between the two cities still took several hours. Serenity directed a question to her husband, does York Corporation have a presence in Ginsburg? Yes, but it's relatively small. We have a manager overseeing our branch there. The main focus of our family's business in Ginsburg is the hotel industry. We own 6 5-star hotels in the city, and 2 of them belong to our family, Zachary explained. Recognition dawned on Serenity. No wonder Nana chose someone from Ginsburg for Kevin. Indeed, it made sense since Kevin was responsible for the extensive hotel portfolio under York Corporation. In the recesses of their minds, both Zachary and Callum concluded, Nana wouldn't act without certainty. Zachary handed Cameron's photo to Callum and promptly turned his piercing glare back onto him. Callum was left flustered. I'll head out now, Zachary and Serenity. You two enjoy your conversation. Make sure Zachary eats enough. The young man's inner monologue was critical of Zachary's penny-pinching tendencies. Even though Serenity had offered to share the food, Zachary had forbidden him from partaking. Callum had to concoct an excuse to leave, all the while ensuring that Serenity didn't catch on to Zachary's miserly behavior. Callum's departure left the office to the young couple. Have you had your meal, Saren? I had something before coming here. Serenity wasn't one to neglect her nourishment. As Zachary reached for the food, Serenity intervened playfully. You're not a child, Zach. Use a spoon. She handed him the utensil, urging him to eat quickly. Cold food isn't ideal for your stomach. Zachary complied, spoon in hand. I'm diving in now, my love. Go ahead. Savoring his meal, Zachary hummed thoughtfully. Saren, are you still feeling uneasy today? Is your stomach bothering you? No, I drank the warm cocoa you made me. It didn't act up this time. Zachary probed gently, Saren, let's arrange a time to collect your belongings from your sister's place. I didn't leave much at my sister's, just a few outfits. I figured I'd leave them there, so I could stay over whenever I want. A warm smile tugged at Zachary's lips. Alright then. I'll purchase a few more outfits for you. No need. I've practically exhausted my savings on clothes, shoes, and formal attire. My wardrobe is practically bursting. She had to take cues from her aunt on how to fit into society. Under her aunt and Elise's scrutinizing gazes, she had been compelled to update her wardrobe substantially. Her aunt emphasized her altered status. Dressing impeccably would deter criticism, whereas dressing shabbily would invite gossip. In essence, she was now Mrs. York, the center of attention. There's a generous sum on our shared card. Feel free to use it for any shopping needs. No need to dip into your own savings. To those accustomed to their lifestyle, Serenity's years of savings seemed inconsequential. Serenity remained silent. Zachary leaned in and planted a kiss on her cheek, prompting her to push him away playfully, reaching for a napkin to wipe the spot. Don't kiss me when your lips are oily. Honey, I'm working tirelessly to provide you with a comfortable life. If you don't spend my money, all my efforts would be in vain. Are you short on funds? You don't need to overexert yourself. Even if you married 100 versions of me, we wouldn't dent your fortune. But in the future, you must adhere to your work schedule. No overtime. And if you do, you better be home before 10. Zachary's gaze held a fond indulgence. I promise, my dear. With the arrival of Serenity Hunt at York Corporation, the icy demeanor of the company thawed entirely. Serenity refrained from bringing up Zachary's prior deception. In the days ahead, Zachary was determined to amplify his love for Serenity. Mrs. Stone is expecting. Should we send over some supplements? Zachary's inquiry came casually, his fingers intertwining with Serenity's after their meal. He'd remarked about Clive's childlessness during their last encounter, only to learn that Alice was now pregnant. The thought arose, when would Serenity and he embark on this journey of parenthood? Zachary, however, wasn't rushing into parenthood. He cherished the anticipation, fueled by his long-pent desires for Serenity. Yet, he restrained himself for a bit longer, holding back his impatience. Tenderly, he raised her hand to inspect her healing finger, planting a soft kiss on the wounded spot. He blamed himself for her injury. I spoke to Liberty about it. She's going to purchase the supplements. Being a mother herself, she's better versed in this. We'll send them together once she acquires them. Serenity's joy was genuine upon hearing about Alice's pregnancy. That works. I'll reimburse Liberty for the supplements. Serenity hummed in agreement. Saren? Yes. I just wanted to say your name and hear your voice. Zachary's embrace tightened around her, securing her against his chest. Saren, you can't fathom how much I've yearned for you on the days I couldn't be with you. She, too, had endured challenges, although her plight was far milder compared to his. While Serenity and Zachary were on their path of reconciliation, Grandma May was stepping into the breakfast place, where Liberty was tending to Sunny. Grandma May, what brings you here? Ceasing her son's feeding, Liberty rose to welcome the elderly woman. I came to check on how your diner is shaping up. Grandma May glanced around the establishment's decor before expressing her views. It might not be grand, but it's neat and tidy. Those who step in will sense the cleanliness and feel comfortable dining here. Liberty chuckled. It's a recently refurbished establishment, so naturally, it appears clean and orderly. I'll maintain that level of hygiene once it's open for business. Grandma May nodded approvingly. That's the least you should do. Don't sacrifice your integrity for the sake of profit. Good-hearted people won't be mistreated by God. Of course, Grandma May. Witnessing Sonny independently feeding himself after she'd set down the bowl, Grandma May remarked, "Sonny is growing so fast. He's self-sufficient with his meals now. Perhaps it's time to consider preschool, which could offer you some respite. Do you have plans to hire a helper?" Liberty aided the elderly woman to a seat. "Since the establishment hasn't opened yet, I'm uncertain about the prospective business volume. Initially, I'll manage it on my own. Saren and Mrs. Lane will pitch in on the opening day. Let me know if you require assistance. I'm aged and limited in my capabilities, but my 9 grandchildren are at your disposal. If you summon them, they'll aid you." Liberty was quick to respond, "There's no need for that. If the business takes off, I'll consider hiring help. Bringing in the York family children is excessive. They're destined for greatness, while I'm just launching a breakfast diner. There's no need for them to intervene." Grandma May's urging continued, "You and your sister ought to learn how to wield the York family name to your advantage. If you agree to let me arrange for the boys to come and support your restaurant, I guarantee your business will soar." Having all 9 young York masters frequent their establishment would be a walking advertisement. Nonetheless, Liberty remained steadfast in her refusal. "Nana, we want to stand on our own merits. My aunt is always willing to assist me, and turning down her help might burden Saren more." Concerned about her guests, Liberty asked, "Have you had your meal, Nana? We can dine together if you're inclined." Liberty had yet to eat, as she fed her son first. "Frankly," Grandma May stated, "I've savored an array of cuisines. Of course, I don't mind partaking in a meal with you. In fact, I'd be delighted to." A change in palate was ideal for Grandma May. Liberty produced a plate of homemade spaghetti and confessed, "I only prepared spaghetti, thinking it would be just Sonny and me." The dish was a simple serving of spaghetti and meatballs. Grandma May replied, "Hush now, you know me well. I wouldn't have arrived at this time if I weren't keen on having lunch with you." Fetching herself a bowl, Grandma May showed her down-to-earth demeanor. Liberty appreciated the elderly woman's temperament, and since she displayed no qualms about the uncomplicated meal, Liberty felt no embarrassment either. As the trio convened for lunch, the door swung open. "Sonny, I brought you." "Grandma May." Duncan entered, holding a large windmill for Sonny, his voice calling out the child's name. His confidence waned upon spotting Grandma May, for no apparent reason, and he found himself unnaturally guilty. Swiftly, he contemplated fleeing. "Duncan, why are you making a run for it just seeing me?" Duncan halted, turned back, and re-entered the establishment. He chuckled, "Grandma May, it's not like I'm escaping at the mere sight of you. I just realized that I left my phone in the car and was heading to retrieve it." Grandma May glanced toward his trouser pocket. "Isn't that your phone right there in your pocket?" Duncan patted his pants, laughing. "Well, you're right. My memory's fading as I age. I couldn't even recall my phone's in my pocket." "Don't talk about growing old around me. Are you as old as I am?" Duncan grinned sheepishly. Curious about his hunger status, Liberty inquired, "Have you had lunch, Mr. Lewis?" Since Grandma May wasn't an extensive eater, there was enough food for her. However, if Duncan joined them, Liberty would have to whip up another dish. If he hasn't eaten by this time, then he can go hungry. Duncan was left speechless. "I've eaten, Liberty. You and Grandma May should enjoy your meal. Sonny, I got you another windmill." Handing over the windmill to Sonny, Duncan used an ingratiating tone. While Sonny glanced at the new toy, he continued eating. Duncan, it seemed, only knew how to buy windmills for him, either big or small ones. The windmills never quite captured Sonny's attention as much as the food in his bowl did. Duncan, Sonny is an astute little fellow. Grandma May gently rested her fork on the plate, having finished her meal. She was content. Duncan concurred, "You're right, Sonny is quite clever." Her grandmotherly instincts discerned the similarity between her grandson and Sonny. However, there was an exception, Josh, who possessed a shrewdness similar to Kevin's. Though Grandma May couldn't ascertain Duncan's intentions, she sensed that he was striving to connect with Sonny. It was as if he sought to be addressed as Dad. Duncan might have mused to himself, "I just enjoy Sonny's company." He grinned with a hint of sheepishness and explained, "I've never been around children before, so I'm unsure of their toy preferences." Sonny seemed thrilled with the windmill last time, even letting me carry him. I assumed he liked windmills, hence my decision to get another one. Grandma May was left speechless. Was Duncan unfamiliar with the concept of variety? She pondered whether her old friend, old Mrs. Lewis, had been driven to her wits' end by her grandson's antics. Juggling her 9 grandchildren was already headache-inducing, yet in comparison to Duncan, they appeared almost angelic. No comparison, no despair. Observing Duncan's unease, Liberty assisted her son in accepting the windmill from Duncan's grasp. With a smile, she added, "Sonny still enjoys playing with windmills. Thank you, Mr. Lewis." She signaled for her son to express his gratitude. Sonny dutifully wiped the remnants from his mouth with a napkin, accepted the windmill from his mother, and courteously thanked Duncan, "Thank you." Duncan returned the smile, "You're welcome. If you fancy it, I can get more windmills for you next time." Sonny promptly responded, "I already have lots of toys. I don't need more." Thanks to Elise's frequent bestowal of intriguing new toys, Sonny's toy collection was far from wanting. Duncan surveyed the store once again and commented, "The place looks great, Liberty. It's bright and inviting. Your business will surely thrive." "I'll put in the effort," Liberty pledged. She turned towards the cash register, unlocked the drawer with a key, retrieved a stack of money, and handed it to Duncan, saying, "This covers the rent for this month, Mr. Lewis. I initially planned to deliver it to your housekeeper, but since you're here, I'll pass it to you directly. You can inform your housekeeper that the rent's been settled." Under Grandma May's observant gaze, Duncan accepted the money with a composed demeanor. "Does this amount encompass the utilities as well?" "Yes," Liberty confirmed. With a nonchalant hum, Duncan began tallying the funds on the spot. In her heart, Grandma May mused, "Am I growing old? Am I deluding myself? Maybe Duncan holds no romantic interest in Liberty, and their relationship remains strictly that of landlord and tenant?" After her divorce, Liberty had shed dozens of pounds. Though not exactly slim, she had shed a considerable amount of weight. She was diligently engaged in exercise to achieve her weight loss goals. Grandma May held a firm belief that in a few months, Liberty would regain her slender figure and radiance. Having a facial scar and a rugged disposition, Duncan, at the age of 36, remained single. His contemporaries had already established families, but he hadn't even taken a woman's hand. His mother was apprehensive about his prospects, yet all her attempts to arrange dates yielded no follow-ups. While vexed, she had little influence, for Duncan had built his life self-reliantly. Thus, she lacked the means to apply pressure. Having completed the money count, Duncan extracted his phone and contacted the housekeeper, inquiring about the utility bills for Liberty's store. Oblivious to the disapproving glare Grandma May directed at him, he continued his call. Grandma May found solace in the fact that Duncan wasn't her grandson. The thought of Zachary evoked a silent sigh from her. Like-minded individuals tend to congregate together. Duncan was closely associated with Zachary, and their shared attributes were conspicuous. Following Duncan's brief consultation with the housekeeper about the utility bill, he ended the call and affirmed, "The sum is accurate." Sliding the received rent into his wallet, he suggested, "For future transactions, feel free to transfer the amount to either my housekeeper or me. I'll ensure that proper records are maintained." Liberty nodded in response, adding, "Last month, I opted for a transfer. However, this month, the card linked to my account reached its limit, compelling me to withdraw cash with my bankbook." While a card was designated for daily expenses, her primary funds were housed in a separate account. Duncan inquired, "Is there anything else you require assistance with?" Liberty quickly responded, "Everything is in order. We're merely awaiting the grand opening." "Have you distributed flyers?" A smile curved Liberty's lips. "It's unnecessary. Given the extensive renovation period, countless passers-by have noticed the store. With the signboard in place, it's evident what kind of establishment I'm running." Her target consisted mainly of employees from neighboring companies and factories. Luring patrons from a distance was challenging. Competition was fierce, as numerous breakfast diners lined up. Despite the odds, she aspired to establish herself here, channeling all her hopes into this venture. Duncan remained silent. After ambling through the store, he contemplated sitting down, yet the lingering stare from Grandma May gave him pause. A sense of guilt surfaced. He wasn't engaged in any wrongdoing, but her gaze made him feel as though he were. "Very well, then. I'll take my leave. Count on my support during the opening." Duncan didn't linger, wary of the penetrating gaze that Grandma May directed at him. Though he had committed no offense, her eyes seemed to possess a discerning quality. The notion that even someone as resolute as Zach was compelled into marriage amused Duncan. Evidently, Grandma May was an imposing figure. Such thoughts triggered recollections of his own grandmother. Were she alive, he might have found himself married by now. The solitary distinction between Zachary and himself lay in the fact that his friend still had the presence of his Nana. "You lead a hectic life, Mr. Lewis. Just let me know in advance what you'd like for breakfast, and I'll prepare it for you. Swing by to pick it up as you pass by. No need to delay your schedule." Duncan, a prominent CEO, need not allocate much time to have breakfast at her modest establishment. In her view, someone of his stature should enjoy breakfast at a place like Wiltspoon Hotel. He simply shrugged, remarking, "It's all good." Duncan's intention was to manifest his support for Liberty's endeavor. "I'll take my leave, Grandma May." Duncan affectionately tousled Sunny's hair before bidding farewell to the elderly woman. As she offered a casual hum, he promptly departed, his car gradually disappearing from view. Observing his departure and then glancing at Liberty, who had resumed her position by the register, Grandma May noticed her engrossed in a small book alongside a calculator. The process seemed to involve tallying the expenditure attributed to the store's renovation. Thoughts circled in Grandma May's mind, perhaps my suspicions were unfounded. She realized that Liberty held no romantic interest in Duncan. Still, Grandma May approached Liberty and posed a tentative question, "Liberty, what do you envision for your future?" "In my hopes, all you can eat will expand into numerous branches across the country. Business is essential, yet what about your personal life? You're only 31. Have you considered the prospects? I reiterate my prior offer. I can introduce you to a dedicated and capable young man. I assure you, your second marriage will surpass the first. Your life will improve exponentially, causing your ex-husband to regret his decision." A chuckle escaped Liberty. "Nana, you have 9 grandsons. With the exception of the oldest and youngest, the remaining 7 are of marrying age. Aren't their concerns enough? Grandma May beckoned Sunny over. With a gleam in her eye, she responded, "Old age has befallen me, limiting my activities. My grandsons tend to my needs and discourage me from exerting myself. To alleviate my boredom, I've resorted to becoming a matchmaker. Just this morning, I handed Callum and Kevin 2 photos each, instructing them to pursue their future wives according to my plan. Those under 25 are of less concern. The initial 6 surpass 25, and the youngest 3 still require time. Men mature at a slower pace, less precocious than their females. It's prudent for them to wed after reaching a certain maturity." She expounded, conveying that early marriages often yielded insufficient emotional and practical preparedness for raising a family. "This year, my 6th grandson turns 25. Yet, I shall grant him patience. After Callum and Kevin's tasks are fulfilled, I'll turn my attention to my 4th and 5th grandsons. With suitable candidates in hand, they shall follow suit. This strategy aims to secure marriages for 4 grandsons within a year." Liberty was left flabbergasted. With such celerity, Grandma May could ostensibly marry off her entire brood in record time. Mr. Young Johnson enlisted Zach's assistance in arranging his brother's marriage as well. "I've met Remy previously, a fine gentleman. Currently, I'm on the lookout for an appropriate match for him. Grandma May, I'm a divorced single mother. For now, I have no intention of remarrying. Allay your fears, I shan't propose Remy as a candidate. He resides too distantly. Furthermore, I recognize Saren's reluctance for you to marry afar." Liberty was at a loss for words. "My aim in sharing this is to underscore my capacity to find a suitable man for you. A second marriage can yield happiness." With grace, Liberty declined, "Grandma May, matters of love aren't within my contemplation at this juncture. I endured over a decade with Hank, only to see our marriage dissolve within 4 years. The aftermath nearly plunged us into enmity. That's enough hardship for me. What has marriage granted me? The sole positive outcome was Sunny. In my present life, I'm resolute in nurturing Sunny. He's already been neglected by his biological father, a stepfather isn't any better. My current focus is Sunny's welfare. I require nothing more." A pause ensued before Grandma May responded, "Let destiny unfold naturally. Instances exist where step-parents invest their hearts and souls into their stepchildren. While such scenarios were the exception, they did exist. Duncan occupied the status of the 4th scion of the Lewis family. His mother, Mrs. Lewis, maintained elevated standards, exclusively aligning him with women from comparable backgrounds." To be continued.